Welcome to the Encore Effect, the podcast where music takes center stage in life's second act. Brought to you by Encore Creativity, America's largest choral organization for adults 55 and older. This inspiring series celebrates the transformative power of music, community, and creativity in the later years of life. Each episode will share moving personal stories from Encore singers across the country and dive into fascinating conversations with experts in neuroscience, gerontology, and the arts. Discover how choral singing is boosting brain health, improving well-being, and lighting up the lives of thousands of older adults nationwide. From retirees finding their voice for the first time, to the science behind why doctors are prescribing music for the mind, the Encore Effect proves that creativity is endless. Join us and let the music move you.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Encore Effect. We are so glad that you have joined us again this week. We hope that you are enjoying these conversations and stories about those that are involved, believe in, support, engage with Encore Creativity for Older Adults, the nation's largest core organization for those 55 and older. And today I'm very excited to talk to our guest. He is an absolute brilliant human being and musician and one of our conductors at Encore. David Simmons is an accomplished pianist, organist, music educator, and conductor whose career has taken him from the music classroom to the church organ and choir loft, and from work as a recital soloist and accompanist to a variety of conductors' podiums, stretching from choral and orchestral work to turns in musical theater, jazz, and opera. Since September of 2021, David has served as the full-time director of music for the historic Trinity Episcopal Parish in Wilmington, Delaware. He became the founding conductor of the Encore Choral of Wilmington in 2022 and the founding conductor of the Encore Choral of Philadelphia in 2024. In July of 2025, David was appointed the Artistic Director of Cora Allegra, a 32-voice audition vocal chamber ensemble based in Wilmington, Delaware, that's about to enter its 40th season. Prior to moving to Wilmington with his husband, Michael Polsher, in 2021, David was active in the Washington, D.C. music community for over 33 years. He was the director of music for Ascension Lutheran Church and School. He also served as the artistic director and conductor of the 100-voice Congressional Chorus in Washington, D.C. He became the founding artistic director of the American Youth Chorus and the founding director of the 24-member a cappella Congressional Chamber Ensemble. He then also assumed the leadership of the Northeast Senior Singers in Washington, D.C. David has also served as the organist and choir director for Calvary Baptist Church, and he has served as an Encore Creativity conductor in the D.C. region and as the associate artistic director of Encore Creativity nationwide. From 1988 to 2021, David conducted and accompanied for many DC area companies, including, this is so impressive, I'm going to read them all, the Washington National Opera, the Capital City Symphony and Washington Savoyards, including they performed at numerous venues, including the White House, U.S. Capitol Building, State Department, Library of Congress, National Archives, the National Building Museum, the Kennedy Center of the Performing Arts, Roundhouse Theater, the Harman Center for the Arts, the National Theater, the Alden Theater, the Gildenhorn Theater, the Catzen Center for the Arts, Arena Stage, and the Atlas Performing Arts Center. What an impressive list of places to be able to conduct and accompany. In addition, he worked in the education and outreach programs of numerous DC-based performing arts organizations, including the Washington Chorus, the Choral Arts Society of Washington, and the Washington Opera. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having joined you today, Joshua.
Wow, what an exhaustive and impressive list of the things you have done, David.
Well, there were times it was exhausting.
I was just reading the list of places that you performed. So, David, you have this, exhaustive list of things that you have done musically. But when you're not doing music, you're not accompanying, you're not conducting, what are some other fun things that you love to do?
I think one of my favorite fun things to do is to work outside in the garden. I love to create with color and texture and shape and just get my hands in the dirt. And also, I love traveling whenever I'm not making music or outside. I love to be on the road. I love history, so I love going to see places that history was made. I find that fascinating.
Speaking of history, you conduct a choir in New York City, Philadelphia, which is one of our Encore chorales. The founding conductor of both the Wilmington program in Delaware and the Philadelphia program. And David, I remember when we started Wilmington, we had what, 3 or 4 singers at our very first rehearsal.
4 singers, one soprano, one alto, one tenor, and one bass.
Well, at least we had a choir, right? It
We
was
did have a chord. Yep.
a choir. But you and I said we're not going to give up. This was still coming out of COVID. We were still, Omicron had just kind of reared its ugly head, and we were
Correct.
not going to give up. Now tell our listeners about, I know you love them all, and tell them a little bit about the 2 choirs in Philadelphia and Wilmington.
Well, what's amazing is we're now in our 4th season here in Wilmington, and I think we now hit 65, which is unbelievable. It's the word of mouth spread like wildfire. And in Philadelphia, this is even crazier. We just celebrated our 1st anniversary this week, actually, and we're now almost at the same exact number, somewhere I don't know exactly anymore, in the mid 60s in 1 year. So it's amazing to see the growth. And what I love about it, although Wilmington is a city, it's a small city, so it is more of a suburban feel. But when I go down to Philadelphia, we are downtown in the historic heart of Philadelphia. So here, a lot of people drive to get to rehearsal. There, a lot of people walk, take public transportation. But of course, the common denominator is they just want to come and sing and have fun. And what's incredible in both places, even in Philly in a year, the community that has been built is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, really strong in both places.
Those are 2 wonderful ensembles, and we're seeing growth, across the entire organization, which is so exciting. More older adults getting involved in singing and building community. You've had this amazing list of things that you've done, but what about Encore creativity? Why do you stay, David? What is different? What is special about making music in an encore rehearsal compared to everything else that you've done?
Um, I think what I find exhilarating is that I see on a regular basis, although we do have, a lot of experienced singers who people have been singing regularly for their entire lives, but they see a lot of people, many people who this is the first time they've ever been in any kind of musical organization. They've ever done anything musically with other people. And the joy that, people, there was a lady yesterday who just came up to me, put her hand on my back, said, I am having so much fun. I've never done this. I don't know how to read music well yet, but it's bringing so much joy into my life, and it's palpable. And you can feel, and when we walk into both those rehearsals, before we begin, they are so glad to see each other. They're so supportive of each other. For me, it's seeing the joy that these folks get out of, for many of them, making music for the very first time, or for the first time maybe in 50 years. And that's what I just find absolutely exhilarating. The pure, unadulterated joy that so many people receive from their hour and a half with us, and what it does outside of that hour and a half, what it does to their whole life in general.
Mm. Every time I go and experience a rehearsal or be at one of your concerts, David, I'm always so impressed with the way that you lead your ensembles. And you have this, brilliant way of balancing, these expectations of excellence and in music making with a whole lot of fun.
Mm.
They all walk the right way. They all hold the folder the right way. They all stand up when they're supposed to, and they sound amazing, but they're also they just have a blast. Like they want to go out to dinner afterwards. They go to lunch groups. They're all friends. How are you finding that balance of excellence yet also lots of fun?
Well, it's interesting. I think, and it doesn't matter if it's for me, whether it's a choir of older adults, whether it's an elementary school choir, whether it's an unauditioned choir or an audition choir that is, all professional or semi-professional or mixed. For me, I believe I have to have fun in a rehearsal and performance. That's so important for me, and it's so important. I think in the quality of the sound is greatly reflective of the experience that people are having in rehearsal and before they actually walk out on stage. And for, I just believe I have to enable them and give them permission, because I think we've probably all had conductors who were did not sort of appreciate the lighter side, and I always tried to. That always sort of was a turn off for me. So I try to find the lightness and the joy in everything we do, because I think it reflects in the quality of the music. No one, especially in it, if you're doing it in your free time, wants to come to something that they feel is oppressive. And for me, if I can just find the lightness and the fun in everything we do, I think it makes for a better performance.
Mm. You're such a well-respected conductor by your ensembles and at Encore in general. In fact, you're about to get a big award with Encore, the Gene Kelly Artistic Excellence Award. And with that kind of respect, what what do you tell your singers? You've got a lot of new singers coming to Wilmington and Philadelphia, some who've never sung in a choir, some who haven't sung in many years. What if one of your singers came to you, David, and said, when I was a kid, somebody told me I couldn't sing, or they had a bad experience in music? What would you tell them?
There is no such thing as perfection. We are all, whether you are singing for the first time or whether you're Renee Fleming, who's been singing for decades at the Metropolitan Opera, we're all on a journey towards for growth. We all want to come out of every rehearsal and every season a better singer, a better musician, a better, more well-rounded person, and that everybody has certain gifts, and same thing with the voice. There are certain people who have not different ranges, different sonorities, different abilities. Some people are more oral in the way they learn. Some people are very good at reading notated music. And I just say to them, don't be fearful. Put those, whatever happened in the past, the ghosts, some of the, and people have sometimes had traumatic experiences, and put that in the drawer, and you can close that drawer because that chapter's over, and this is going to be an accepting, an encouraging, and a very supportive environment where you can experiment and you can collaborate with all the people around you, and not worry about perfection or just the end product. The more important thing, yes, we want a great, excellent concert, but the most important thing is the journey, that you are enjoying the process all along the way, every second of the minute.
I love that you're enjoying the journey of music making and the progress that you're making
Yes.
as an artist, no matter how quick or how slow that journey or that process might be. So one more kind of question about Encore, then I want to talk about David, the artist. So can you think back, at your entire time at Encore Creativity, was there a moment, maybe a song, a moment on stage, a learning time in rehearsal that just really wowed you? That's kind of a core memory of your time at Encore. Like there's this moment, Josh, that really has stuck with me through all this time.
Yeah, I think probably the first time I said to the group, we're going to try to do this piece from memory, and a lot of people, oh, no, we can't do this, or and it was the reason we're putting the music down is because there were claps in the piece, and
Mm.
no, we're not going to, and we worked and we worked and we worked and we got the music memorized. We got it under our belts. Then we added to the claps, and even added a little. Some of the folks added a little step clap, step clap, and that I'll never forget in the concert. We did it. They nailed it,
Mm.
and the look of pride on their faces because I when my back was to the audience, I'd sort of turn around and gave them the two thumbs up and a big wink, and you could feel the beams on their faces. I mean, it was just they had conquered many of them conquered their fears of not having that music in front of them and not just standing still like a board, or being free with their bodies. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I remember that moment. I was there, and
Yeah,
I remember the big old smiles on everybody's face.
yeah,
They
yeah.
were
It's just
they did it, and they were so happy that you were happy, David. Like
oh yeah,
combination of both things.
yeah. That's for sure. Yeah.
So tell us about how you started your musical journey. What age were you? Was it piano, voice, another instrument?
Well, I actually don't remember not having music in my life. My dad is a Lutheran pastor and is a great tenor. So our house was always full of music. The church, of course, was always full of music. I was there often. So like for me, it's almost from the cradle that I feel like I've been surrounded by music. I started formal training when I was 8. I started piano lessons when I was 8 years old. And what's amazing, actually, I told this story. It's so funny you ask. I told this story yesterday at Encore. I've only had one piano teacher my entire life, from 8th grade through 12th grade. And when I started lessons, it was 50 cents a lesson. And
Wow,
when I finished in 12th grade, it was $1. I never paid more than $1 for a piano lesson.
amazing.
It's crazy. But I started organ when I was 12 years old. Also started, I think, trumpet when I was 9. So by the time I was 12 years old, I was taking 3 different lessons a week. And then all the practice that goes with it, especially the organ, was probably the most time consuming. Um, and I think I started theater in 8th grade, and from 8th grade all through high school and college and law school, and even as a young adult, when I was practicing law for a few years, I still was soloing, and I was also performing on the stage in both operetta and opera.
And when did you decide to or knew that you might want to be a conductor?
Uh, Actually, I didn't. Even though I was always had music in my life and was very spent a lot of time in lessons and in classes in high school and college and so forth. I actually thought I was going to be a politician. I went to law school and I had worked on the Hill when I was uh, young, and I thought I was going to go back there and run for office. And I didn't, but I became a litigator, and I was getting burned out after about 4 or 5 years, and I needed a break, and I wasn't sure what type of law I was going to go back into. So I took a job. It was meant to be temporary. It was meant to be for 5, 6 months tops, teaching music at a school. I took the church job, and they had a school, and they're like, would you like to teach here as well? And I really never, Josh, I never thought I would like teaching elementary kids. I ended up loving it. I absolutely adored it. So I never went back to the practice of law, and I was still soloing and accompanying, and I really wasn't thinking I was going to go into conducting career. And then a whole bunch of opportunities came up in both the musical theater world and the opera world, and I threw my hat in the ring, and I love that too. So a lot of my paths were not if you had asked me where I was going to be 35 years ago, I wouldn't tell you sitting here today. Um,
Mm.
I thought I'd be practicing law and some hopefully elected politician. But yeah, the things I didn't think I would enjoy, once I started doing them, I absolutely love them. And I'm like, I can't imagine going back to not being passionate about what I was doing. So it was a career that sort of, a lot of things fell out of the sky in my lap that I wasn't even anticipating, and they just grew and grew and grew and got bigger. And all of a sudden was that, well, the path of life was sort of forged for me. I worked really hard, but it was in a way karma, or whatever you want to call it, stepped in and said, no, you're not going this road, you're going this road.
Well, I'm glad the path led you down being a musician and an artist, but I also would have voted for you if you were a politician.
No, thank you.
So
Well,
Go ahead.
No, no, I was going to say it was just a very quick, it was a very different culture in those days when I worked in the Hill. It was a culture of bipartisanship and congeniality, and it was very different in the late 80s, early 90s. So I'm definitely glad that I am where I am, I'll tell you that.
Here, here. So, you've been a part of a musical community, David, your entire life since you were a kid. And how do you think being a part of that community maybe changed your relationships or shaped your relationships with others and with how you viewed yourself?
I think, and I think that question is even more important today. It was funny. I was just having a conversation with one of the singers at Encore Philadelphia after the rehearsal, one of our coordinators, Deborah, and we were talking about how people seem to be more and more isolated today and um, uh, are not part of the kind of civic groups that we used to see. And I think what Encore, well, any organization, but particularly Encore, uh, provides to so many people is a sense of being part of something that's bigger than them.
Mm,
Um, and think our worlds can very very small, and we can withdraw, and we can feel that we don't connect to the larger world around us, or we don't have a place in that world or a place that's meaningful. Um, and going into that room, whether it's a rehearsal room or whether it's drinks afterward or lunch during an alto sectional during the week or something, um, it gives you the sense that yes, I am part of this continuing line of music that's dating back hundreds, thousands of years. That is, it's like almost there's this pulse of music in the air. It's just like a river is constantly flowing, and there's constantly, in my mind, always a pulse of music in the air. The question is, are you going to join? Are you going to take the leap and jump in at some point into the pond or into the stream and be part of some of that music that's constantly around us? And I think what's beautiful about Encore and any kind of choral ensemble, musical ensemble, is that you feel a sense of energy, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of um, the world being a place that is welcoming and accepting, and you're not alone, you're not isolated, you're not by yourself, that you can do bigger things with other people when you allow them into, and it's hard, you allow them into your life. And there's a vulnerability when you're singing next to somebody. They can hear you, they're right next to them, but you're opening yourself up. But if you take that leap, jump into that continual water of music that's around us, that stream that's flowing, I think it can be incredibly rewarding, especially because, you know, not everybody's a soloist, not everybody's a Pavarotti or a Beyonce, etc. But people who, you know, you might have trouble with the bottom of your range. The person next to you might have trouble with the top of their range. But the beauty of taking a lot of people and putting them together, all our weaknesses, all our little vocal weaknesses disappear. And when we sing together, it's just one big glorious sound. Even though might not all be soloists and professional singers, it doesn't matter when you come together and you put your voices, they create something new that can only be created when you join with others to sing.
that's beautiful, David. I'm going to capture all of that and put it in our newsletter or something. Just
Sure.
talk about choral singing. I think one of the special things about Encore is this sense of shared life journeys and experiences too. There's something about being 55 or older where not only are singers making music together, but they're in a similar life stage, right? They are maybe going through the beginning stages of retirement, or there might be health issues, or they're understanding what it's like to have grandkids. Like there's just this kind of life stage that everyone in the room shares together. Do you think that encore singers find a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of shared experience? Have you seen that happen kind of in real time in your ensembles?
Oh my gosh, not well. I see it every week. Matter of fact, the yesterday, during both before, during a break in the middle, and then at the end, the decibel level was so loud because they were so happy to see each other, um, and and not only do I see it and I hear it, you can tell by the smiles on their faces, their reaction to someone new who comes in the door or someone they haven't seen in a while. But they tell me. I mean, like I don't. There is not a week that goes by that I don't have someone or multiple people say to me, "I have had a really hard week. You don't know what this did for me today to light my spirits, lift my spirits." Um, to give me there are people, I remember a woman who came to me after one of our last concerts in Wilmington and said, she said, "You didn't know this, I never told you, but she said, I've gone through a lot of depression." And she said, "I've really been working hard to try to get through it. And I've not been successful in the last few years." But she said, "I can tell you that tonight after this concert," she said, "I can't tell you the last time I felt this good." She said, I looked at my spouse and said, wow, there's something's changed in me. It's like the song from Wicked, "I have been changed for good." And there's most definitely and something you can't always put your finger on it, but there's an electricity, and there's a change that comes about people when they are part of that experience, and it doesn't end at the end of the rehearsal. So many people tell me that I've heard this phrase, "I've carried this with me through the week." And it might have been a lyric that we were singing. It might have been a melodic line. It might have been a particular rhythm. And they said it's lived with me and in me since the last rehearsal. And I just think we have so many challenges in life. So to have those positive things help get us through those challenges, I think is amazing.
Music is such a huge part of our life, whether we're, a practicing musician or artist or not. And, there are so many songs that I think back on my life and that they're kind of these core moments that define who I am as a person. If you were to tell us, David, what your life song is, if there was one song, which I know that's really hard to do, but is there a song that kind of says, this is who David Simmons is?
Um, there's a song from the musical Ragtime.
Mm.
And it's called "Make Them Hear You." "Go out and tell your story, let it echo through the land, make them hear you, make them hear you." And for me, for many different reasons throughout my life, many different times and for many different reasons, when you feel beat down by the world, like life can be hard. That song has, I'll just like hum it or actually sing the words or just hear it in my head. There's a line, "Let it echo far and wide." And for me, it's such a brilliant, when the world's trying to drag you down, it's a way of just, for me, lifting myself up. I know you asked me one, that's the song I sing. I have to tell you though, and I've shared this with Encore groups. I shared it with a lot of young students too. This talks to the transformational power of choral singing, and why, especially with young people, but also people at the other end of life, people in Encore who are becoming involved and wondering, is this something I should try? I always tell them, you can have a transformational experience, and it'll often happen when you least expect it. And I think my choral transformational experience is not with that song; it's with the last movement of the Four Requiem in Paradisum,
Mm.
and because of being in a choir, I was able to do, this is years ago, I think it was 25 years ago or more, travel to do a concert tour in Europe. And one of the places we sang was at La Madeleine in Paris. And we got to the last movement and it starts ba ba bum ba ba bum ba ba bum with the strings very lightly. And then the sopranos come in Paradisum, and they're very high, but as light and as soft as they can, real straight tone. And the men aren't singing, the tenors and bass aren't singing, so we just get to listen to the beginning of this movement. And we're standing in the front of this. The Madeleine is where 4A was. the choir director. He wrote the music there. He played the organ, which was accompanying us that day himself. And there were these huge doors, Joshua, in the back, like the kind on the Supreme Court, big, huge bronze doors. And as I don't know if they didn't realize we weren't done yet, but the ushers started opening these doors as the sopranos started singing in Paradisum, in Paradise. And it was summer, and the sun had started setting over the rooftops of Paris. And there's this literally gold yellow light. And I can still see it to this day. It gives me goosebumps. And literally these huge 30, 40-foot doors open, and the sun, gold sun, streams over the audience as you know, we're playing with the room where this was written and the organ that was played, and the women are singing that. And I remember standing there going, this is, you know, this is why we do this. This is why we learn music. This is why we rehearse. And I know, you know, Encore has wonderful trips. You just got back from a wonderful trip to Ireland. And I tell people, you know, it might not be a trip abroad. It might be, you know, just singing at a nursing home down the street. But you never know when your experience as being part of that group will lead to some kind of moment that will stick in your mind. And I can see, to me, that was, I remember that moment thinking, this is what I need to be doing. I'm doing the right. That wasn't too long after I had left the law and went into music. I'm like, this tells me I'm doing the right thing. I'm at the right place. And I think everyone has those moments at different times, but I think the most important thing I can tell with anybody who's considering joining us here at Encore is don't be afraid. Jump in, because you never know when those moments are going to happen, and you want to be there. You want to be part of it when they happen. So that I gave you two songs instead of one, but
I loved it, but both of them were great, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share those, you know, really special moments to you. It helps our listeners even learn more about you. And you summed it up at the end with the last question I was going to ask you, which is, and if you want to add anything to it, you can. But if somebody's listening and they're 55 or older, they know someone 55 or older, and they're thinking, I really would love to try singing in a choir. I'd love to sing. I would love to be a part of this community. You would say, don't be afraid, be brave, go try it. But is there anything else you would tell them?
you can tell them, and I can say this because I have been singing and playing nonstop since I was joined a choir. My first choir when I was 8 years old, the same year I started piano, I was my first choir. And I can tell you, as a young musician in my 20s and 30s and 40s, I was always striving for, you know, this has to be perfect, and this has to be done a certain way, and we have to stay within these guardrails. And the beauty of getting older, I'm 59 now myself, so I'm in the Encore demographic now, is that there's a freedom that comes with going to music, whether it be a choir or an orchestra or whatever, that you didn't have when you were younger. You felt like there were certain holes that you had to and guardrails you had to follow. Now I feel, and I think anybody who comes to music later in life feel there's a certain freedom and also a certain wisdom. I can tell you there are songs that I play or conduct now that I maybe did 30 years ago, and I didn't understand the lyrics. Didn't mean I knew what they were, but they didn't mean as much to me, and I didn't realize it then because I hadn't had the life experience to appreciate them. And I'm learning now, coming back to some of that stuff later on in life, and I think it's the same for our singers, that they can appreciate and find a greater depth and a greater width to what they're singing because of the life experiences that they bring with them, which obviously they couldn't bring with them when you're 15 or 20 or 25 or even 30. So there's a richness to singing at this time in life that you can't have earlier, just because that's how life happens. You know, we're an accumulation of our experiences. And so I would say take advantage of this gift of being older. You were given the gift of making it to your 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s or 90s. And now you can appreciate something about the music that you couldn't have before. So this is really, for me, almost the golden time to be singing or to be part of a musical organization.
David, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for all that you're doing for every musical community you're involved in, but especially for Encore. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Encore Effect.